You're welcome back from that break. This is still the bottom line. And I announced to you earlier on that if you have a cylinder and you have a problem with it, we are not coming to repair the cylinder for you anyway, but you may want to watch this one. And how do you get your home cooking, or how do you cook your food in the house? Is it by cylinder? Is it by charcoal? Is it by electricity? Tonight, we are focusing on cylinder and what the NPA has put out as a module to make sure that there is the requisite safety of cylinders. They call it the cylinder recirculation model. We want to ask them what the motive is. And Obed Crane Boache is the head of gas in charge of commercial regulation at the National Petroleum Authority. And he's been kind enough to join us tonight to go into the very nitty-gritty of what this model is. He's from the National Petroleum Authority. Let me start by asking you this. I have a friend who was perceiving to put up what we know as a filling station, the LPG filling station, where we have the tank and people come in with their cylinders to come and fill and all that. If she had put that up, do you mean to tell me that she was going to close down? Or what exactly is this policy about?
Okay. Good evening, Kwesi, and then good evening to your viewers.
Good evening.
Yes. So if she constructed that station, she would still have the opportunity to run that station as either an auto gas station or a cylinder exchange point under the new framework. What that means for an auto gas station is it will be a station where tow trucks and taxis or vehicles that use LPG, and there are quite a number of them. In fact, the LPG we use in this country, 40 or 50% of them, of that quantity is being used by such users, that is the auto users.
Okay.
So she would still have the opportunity to serve that market.
So there are still cars that use gas?
Oh, yes. Yeah, there's still a lot of vehicles that use LPG in this country.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So she will still have the opportunity to either do that auto gas business or convert that station to a cylinder exchange point where she would have cylinders where consumers or users can go in there and then exchange an empty cylinder for a branded cylinder, filled cylinder to use. So it wouldn't be a waste. She will still be able to operate that facility in some way.
Now, I'll come back to this question in the middle of the discussion again. But I want to start off with what exactly the cylinder recirculation model is about. I have a cylinder in the house. I use gas to cook in the house. You say you are going to recirculate it. Are you going to take my gas and give it to another house and bring another house's gas or cylinder to me? What exactly is the module?
Okay, so let me just give the basics of the cylinder recirculation. So the cylinder recirculation model is basically a mode of distribution of LPG, particularly for domestic or household use, where you fill cylinders in huge quantities at an automated bottling plant, which is usually located in an industrial area or on the outskirts of town to allow for some safety precautions. And so you fill cylinders in bulk at this location, and then you transfer them to what the areas we call, the places we call the cylinder exchange points, where a consumer can go and then exchange an empty cylinder for a filled one without having to stand there for the cylinder to be filled for them. And so, yes, under the cylinder recirculation model, it will be the bottling plants that would procure, brand, and then own the cylinders. And so they will fill these cylinders, and then they will distribute them through their major distributors, which will be the LPG marketing companies. And so the LPG marketing companies will bring it to their cylinder exchange points. Some of the locations we currently know as refilling stations, or where we go to fill our cylinders, will transition. We expect to transition to cylinder exchange point. So the only thing that changes is instead of you going to stand there for the cylinder to be filled for you, you would rather go in there and then you take a branded cylinder, you pay for the cost of the gas, and then you drop your old cylinder. So that is how the model works. Let me take it
one step at a time.
Yes.
First of all, you are telling me that you are going to have, well, let me call it companies.
Yes.
In either remote areas or outskirts of town or in industrial areas.
Yes.
Who own cylinders?
So they are bottling plant companies. That is the license.
But they don't own the cylinders.
So they will own the cylinders.
Yes. They will own the cylinders.
They will own the cylinders.
And they will fill the cylinders.
They will fill the cylinders.
And then when they fill the cylinders,
yes,
they send these cylinders to what we currently know as the filling stations, the gas filling stations.
Yes.
Or you technically will call it the refilling stations.
We call it the refilling stations.
The refilling
which
stations.
are going to transition to cylinder exchange points.
So you mean to say that
yes,
these refilling stations,
yes,
that's the gas LPG refilling stations,
yes,
are no more going to fill cylinders? Is that the case?
Yes. When the CRM is in full effect, they are no more going to fill cylinders at the refilling stations. Currently, we are running the two models side by side as we started with rollout. And so they are still permitted because
to refill.
we have not been able to position the cylinder exchange points at, all locations. There are just a few locations that, have the cylinder exchange points at the moment. And so we are running the two models side by side so that until you find a cylinder exchange point close to your community, you can continue to go to the refilling station where you are being serviced at the moment to get gas for use.
So I have 2 cylinders in my house, as I
Yes.
stated earlier on. Now, if there is an automated bottling plant in my area,
Yes.
and there is a refilling station in my area, and I send my cylinder, I'm not going to get my cylinder back.
No, so what happens is when we start, as we started already, so when you go in to be participate in the exchange exercise, so your old cylinder would be taken in, it will be considered as your security deposit. Now remember, as I explained, under the model, the cylinder now belongs to the bottling plant. It's the bottling plant that's responsible for the cylinder.
But I have bought my cylinder
and
already.
there
I
are
have bought 2
reasons-
cylinders already.
Yes, there are reasons to that.
Are you going to pay me back?
So as I said, your cylinder will be considered as a security deposit.
Okay.
So if you take 2 cylinders
Okay.
to the exchange point,
Okay.
you have the right to take 2 cylinders away.
At any point.
At any
in
point.
time.
So for you, the most important thing as a consumer is to have a cylinder and to be able to get gas to use. And you are still guaranteed that under the CRM. What we are saying is that the cylinder that you bring in is taken by the bottling plant, it is sent to the cylinder manufacturing and refurbishment company, and then they assess it. Where the cylinder is still fit for purpose or fit for use, it is refurbished, it is rebranded, and it is reintroduced into the scheme. Just that you wouldn't see it as your old cylinder. For instance, if you had written your name on it, it won't come back to you as Kwesi's cylinder. It will be branded and brought back into the scheme. The ones that are obsolete will be scrapped. However, as I indicated, your deposit will sit with the dealer, and based on that premise that you have a deposit with the dealer, anytime you need a cylinder to use, for you, in your case, your 2 cylinders, you have access to those 2 cylinders to use. So that is how the model would operate.
How feasible is this model?
It is very feasible. We've seen it being done in several places. Indeed, even in Ghana in the 80s and 90s, it was being done until we transitioned to something else. And so we have seen it in places. We have also undertaken some pilot studies in some regions, and we learned some lessons from the pilot studies, and it will influence how we roll out this model. So indeed, it is a feasible model.
Have you mapped out the entire country? I mean, I know that, of course, you may have, from where you are coming from, NPA, you operate in every district, yes. At least every for want of better words, village in the country.
Yes.
Technically. So you may have data, but I still want to ask you whether you have the data, whether you have mapped out the entire country enough to be able to carry out. Of course, you will start on pilot basis, as you have stated, and move step by step. But do you have the data, and have you mapped out the entire country enough to be able to carry out this?
Okay, so first of all, the CRM was introduced without introduction or government's introduction of the National LPG Promotion Policy. The policy was propagated based on data that some regions had very low access in terms of access to LPG.
Yes.
And so we thought the CRM was a model that allows us to bring LPG more closer to consumers. For me, access is a driving point for CRM. Why so? Currently, your friend who set up the refilling stations, I'm sure if you ask him or her, it costs her not less than $1 million Ghana cedis to construct such a refilling
Yes, they mentioned $100,000 when she had wanted to go in.
So, I mean, in a village somewhere in my grandfather's hometown in Tentale or somewhere, if we want to bring LPG to such people in those areas, we require that huge amount of investment to be able to do that under the current model. But with the CRM, what you need is a cylinder exchange point, which is less costly. In certain instances, for a reseller point, you need just a cage. That allows you to put a cage of some structure in a safe place where you can put a few cylinders, say 10 or 20. And then you can go to exchange the cylinders whenever they are empty. So for me, access has been the driving point of the CRM. And so, yes, there was data. We had carried out some assessments, some exercises over the country, and we had data on access levels at different parts of the country, which, I mean, is what has been driving this policy and then the CRM. But in terms of how we are able to roll out, as I indicated, we have done a pilot in some regions. Now, we are not doing a pilot anymore. We are rolling out, in full force. However, we are not doing it in phases. We are expecting that it will start gradually from Accra, where the bottling plants are located, and in Kumasi as well, where we have another bottling plant located, and then gradually spread out to other parts of the country. And we want to use the existing market players and then the infrastructure to roll out this as much as possible.
You've spoken a bit about cost and safety
Yes.
as well, but
Yes.
how safe and how less costly is this? It looks as if the penetration is of more importance to the NPA
Yes.
than the cost and the safety.
In fact, it costs less to bring LPG to consumers through the cylinder recirculation.
And forgive me, let me announce that there are too many calls coming in. Please, we have put the line up for you to just text. I'll make sure that the text messages that are coming in will be able to read them. He's here to answer your questions.
Good.
So please send in messages, either via WhatsApp, preferably, or you can do SMS as well. So let's go.
Yes, all right. So in terms of cost, as I mentioned earlier, the cost of putting a cylinder exchange point or a reseller point in a community is far less than what you require to put a full refilling station in a community to bring access to consumers. That is number one. There's also the second point of even access for somebody who is not using LPG now, who uses firewood or charcoal that wants to switch to LPG. We have realized that the three main barriers are: one, the person has to buy a brand new cylinder, which is usually a disincentive. Two, price is also another factor. And then three, the distances the person has to travel to get LPG and its availability is also another factor. And so we believe with CRM, we are able to address two of those issues. The first of all, we bring the products closer. Second, they don't have to buy a cylinder. So for a new consumer like that, they can pay a token, what we call the security deposit. That allows the dealer or the person who is going to give him the cylinder to have some form of security that this person is going to return the cylinder to me. And so with that, we believe we are going to make LPG more accessible to people who could not probably have afforded a cylinder in that regard.
So
in terms of cost, that's how we cover. It is far. We think it is less costly to bring LPG to users.
So
And then
Eric Opuku, I don't know if
Yes.
you have listened to him. I'll let you add that one, but let me read Eric's message to you.
Okay.
Eric says this model will not help the poor who buy the quantity they so much desire or the quantity their pockets can pay. How do you address this issue? Eric Opuku Bamfo, OPK, who in the Volta region.
Okay. OPK. So yes, that is an issue that has come up several times when we've engaged the public. Currently, you would largely find the 6 kg cylinders and then the 14.5 kg cylinders in circulation. However, under the CRM, there's going to be the 3 kg cylinders. The bottling plants are introducing the 3 kg cylinders, which are smaller. Also, there's a 6 kg, there's a 12.5 kg also being introduced before the 15 kg. So there are varying sizes that consumers can choose from. Aside that, there are already companies out there, LPG marketing companies out there, who come to, for instance, place a meter on top of your cylinder.
Okay.
They bring a 14.5 kg to your house, they put a meter on top, and then you pay as you use. You pay 5 cedis worth, you use. When it's finished, it gets shut.
That's a different.
Yes, so there are innovative technologies like that out there already, and people come to us for approvals to run some of these things, and so we know it's out there that allows people to roll out LPG for people to use in smaller quantities as well. And for me, I also think it has to also do with education, because, for instance, we don't usually factor in the cost of traveling to, let's say, the refilling station twice in a month.
Yes.
We don't usually factor that
Yes.
cost.
Yes.
We have a 6 kg, we think, let me go and buy 15 cedis today and go and buy 15 cedis tomorrow. Meanwhile, sometimes the cost of traveling there, even adds
It's even about 30 cities or 20 cities.
You
And
see.
that's about 45 cities.
Yes,
to do
and
that.
so sometimes we think, I can just buy 20. But I think with education, for instance, for the commercial users, our mothers who use it for cooking and selling, if we're able to educate them and train them to plan, and for instance, purchase a full 3 kg or 6 kg, they can save some of the costs and some of the time they spend in going to get LPG. And
Francis,
so we believe
I'm
with
sure
these
you're-
ideas,
Oh,
we
sorry,
should be able to convince people or such consumers to be able to roll onto the CRM. And let me just add this one.
Yes.
I think one challenge or one reason why people do that, in fact, we call it tot. It's a balance in the industry.
Yes.
Is that you may own a 14.5 kg cylinder. And so if you go in today and you can only afford a 6 kg, because you own the 14.5 kg cylinder, and that is the only one you can take home, you buy the 6 kg worth and put it in the cylinder and you take it back. However, under the CRM, so far as you have a deposit with your dealer, If you bring a 14.5 kg cylinder, and today you can't afford for the 14.5 kg gas, and the 6 kg gas you can pay for, all you have to do is to pay for the 6 kg gas and take a 6 kg cylinder. So you are not tied to a specific cylinder.
Okay.
So far as you have a deposit sitting with the dealer,
Okay.
that is why we are also asking for some form of registration.
Yes.
So far as you are
Yes.
registered with a guy and you have a deposit sitting with him, if you come today and you can afford a 3 kg, you pick a 3 kg.
So you
are-
need to
are not
register
tied-
with
Yes.
a dealer,
A dealer.
at all costs.
Yes. So he knows that my cylinder is with you, Kwesi. And if you don't bring the cylinder in 1 year time, maybe this is how I can
That's
place
a
you.
refilling point.
Yes, the dealer.
Can you
when go
register
to the
with
exchange.
one, or at least one or two or three?
Okay,
different ones?
so you are not tied down per the registration. So if you move, for instance, if you move from a location to another location, all you have to do is to return the cylinder to the dealer from whom you took that cylinder.
And then go for it.
And then you can go free. And
What
go and
happens
register
if
with
my
another.
cylinder, somebody asks, I'm trying to open the phone, gets faulty?
Okay, so it is one of the reasons why we think the CRM is also safer. You remember the point about the safety. Currently, Kwesi, I don't remember the last time you refurbished your cylinder. Have you refurbished your cylinder before?
I don't remember, in all honesty.
Okay, good. So cylinders usually have the steel cylinders have a lifetime of about 10 years. After 10 years, they are supposed to be reassessed. In certain instances, they can be recertified for additional 5 years. But for every 5 years, it's advised that you take your cylinder for check. Most of us do not do
Do
this.
people, we don't hear from you telling us
Yes,
this.
most
Why?
people-
I didn't know.
Because most people do not do this. And to be honest with you, there are about 3 companies certified to do this. It is the cylinder manufacturing companies that are certified to be able to assess your cylinder and then refurbish it where necessary. Currently, most people do not do it. The most you do is when you go to the refilling station, they may change the
Yes,
black
that,
rubber.
for that they do that for me
you know,
regularly. And they repaint also sometimes.
No, the repainting, you cannot repaint without assessing the cylinder, the internal integrity of the cylinder, whether there is corrosion in
Yes.
there or how the nature of the internal walls are. So the painting alone is not enough. It's not safe. And so under the CRM, that responsibility sits now with the bottling plant because they own the cylinders. Anytime they get cylinders from the public, it goes through a process where they can do some minor maintenance at the bottling plants before they fail. They do that. Where there are large maintenance supposed to be done, they will send it back to the the cylinder manufacturing companies, where these major repairs will be done, and then the cylinders will be rebranded and brought onto the market. And so, under the cylinder recirculation model, you can be assured of a cylinder that is more safe and then fit for use.
So let me try and do this. I have lots of messages coming up, and I promise to read as many as I can.
Good, sure.
Some of them I think you have answered already.
Okay.
But if you can take note of
Sure.
the ones that you haven't answered, so you do that for me. Charles from Sakumono Estate says, please, I live at Sakumono Estate. Where is the collection point in my area? Thank you. I think if you go to the NPA's website, they may have, but of course, it's here to answer. OPK, your question has been asked already. Francis from Tema says, please ask him, assuming I'm buying 20 Ghana cedis and my cylinder is 5 kg, are they going to serve me or ignore me? I think he has answered this already. Francis, good evening. Please, I want to find out if I send my cylinder to the exchange center and there is no cylinder available at then. This is a very important question. Am I able to go to a different center for an exchange? I am Albert, Accra, East Legon, in Adringano. Thank you for the question, Albert. The cylinder recirculation model has been successfully implemented in a number of countries. I believe the CRM will address safety and accessibility issues associated with the LPG. From Gabi, Anthony sent in that one. Please, how can I become a distributor? AA Adna sent in that one. Can you ask him how best this initiative can bring employment? And this is a very important question to us here on the bottom line. We're always concerned about job creation. That's Grant Anaman in Soutum sent in that one. Please, I would like to know how durable the quality the cylinder I will be given is. As for that, the assurance is there. It's coming from an approval or through an approval of the NPA. All of these companies that are going to do this have been approved. My name is Mbeshak from La Paz. Good evening. So what are the investors' opportunities in this new proposed model? David Coleman in Takwa sent in that one. Good evening, sir. What about those of us using the fiber cylinder? Are we going to exchange it with fiber or what? Auntie Araba in Aushi is asking if those who are using the fiber cylinders will have their cylinders replaced with fiber. I am in Kaswa with two 14.5 size cylinders. How do I roll onto your supply system? Charles Afinya Mante sent that one. Let me read this last one and then we'll still come back to the rest of the messages. Again, okay, so Francis Intema came back, says, again, with that 3 kg cylinder, he's talking of might cost you more than 20 Ghana cedis, of which, if my last money is 20 Ghana cedis, I can walk to the place to buy such amount to survive. So he should explain better. Francis from Tema, you are talking about you being able to work, and we considered the cost of your transportation to buy, but working will still cost you, Francis.
Time, which he doesn't even calculate.
And time, yes, he says time. I'm so much educated on the subject matter. If we really want Ghanaians to accept the system, we must do more education, which he agrees to. You know, change in our part of the world is something else. Please, you didn't add your name. Let me take this one, then I can come to you. Please, do you think it's safer to travel to places with plenty of cylinders? I think is a way of getting the gas company out of business. Richard in Tema says this one. I'll come back to you. Still lots of messages coming, but I'll try and read most of them after this round of answers. So this session is for you viewers. If you're watching us, please take note of your answer when Ubed answers you. Chief, we are back to you.
All right, Kwesi. So I think I took most of the ones that were still open,
Yes.
And I'll try to answer them as much as possible. I think the first one was from Charles. Regards to locations. Yes, so the bottling plants and then the LPG are rolling out at the moment. What we mean by we've started is that we have permitted them to begin to roll out and put the cylinder exchange points in the communities.
Okay.
And so we are engaging them now. They have submitted a list of the locations that they have prepared. We have to look at these locations before we even allow them to drop cylinders there, so that we avert the same safety issues we are trying to cure from the beginning. And so from time to time, they'll begin to see some of these exchange points in their communities. And when we get, we've certified those locations, we put out the list on some of our media platforms so that they can go and exchange. And so that's with the locations. Albert wanted to know cylinder available.
Albert, let me get back to Albert's message. But we can go on. I will get back to Albert's message.
Okay, so I think Albert said when there is no cylinder available at the exchange point. Okay, so at the exchange point, you are likely to have different brands. So currently, we have about 3 bottling plants that are ready to roll out. So at your particular cylinder exchange point, you could have cylinders from brand A, brand B, and then brand C. And so where brand A has run out of cylinders, you could, once you return the cylinder, as I indicate, the only thing that ties you to the dealer is the cylinder. Once you return the cylinder, you're able to pick a brand of another bottling plant company. And as you may collaborate, we have not had shortage of LPG in quite a while.
Yeah.
And so we don't anticipate shortage of LPG because we have a plan that allows us to import LPG and also get about 40% from our Tuabo gas processing plant.
What's if we're short?
So those are the instances where I'm saying where you may not have the same brand, you can pick another brand.
Yes.
Or where a dealer is out of LPG entirely, the only thing that ties you is the cylinder. Once you return the cylinder, you should be able to go on to another dealer to pick another cylinder. And so I think that answers that. And
but
then
that's tied into Auntie Araba's own. She says they are using fiber.
Yes. Fiber, yes. So the bottling plants recognize that there's a niche market of that regard, that people use fiberglass cylinders. So some of them have started procurement of fiberglass cylinders. I must say not all of the bottling plants are doing that. And so the brand that has the fiberglass cylinders is where you may want to go and exchange when you see them. And so there's opportunity for them to also be part. And then Grant spoke about job creation. Yes, so under the new value chain, for instance, the role of the bottling plant was not present. But now we have bottling plants. As I said, there are about 3 of them. They run 2 8-shift hours a day, and they have employed people in that regard. Aside the bottling plant, there are going to be resellers who will work with the LPG marketing companies. So unlike the current refilling stations where you have to get your gas from, under the CRM, we are further going to go down into the communities where you can have cages for a reseller. And so those are opportunities. It ties into the question of opportunities for people who want to participate. If you want to become a reseller, you have to go to an LPG marketing company. So the LPG marketing companies are the ones who would engage the resellers through an agency agreement. And so that's an opportunity right there. And so there's job creation there as well. In the area of cylinder transportation also, there is job creation. Currently, we just have the bulk LPG transportation, which the tankers do. But then there's a new opportunity for transporting cylinders in bulk quantities to the refilling stations. And even you have delivery services. I'm sure you've seen some companies taking motorcades and tricycles to communities, picking cylinders.
Cylinders
it will become,
going to refill and bring
you will see more of them. You will see more of that under the cylinder recirculation model because the cylinders are pre-filled. And so it takes short period for you to carry them to people's homes and then bring them back. So I think that answers the question of the job creation and then how to become a distributor.
Right.
And then and the opportunities as well for Coleman.
Yes, you mentioned a bit on the opportunities.
Yes, Auntie question, I think we've touched on that already. And then 2 of 14.5 kg, I think I mentioned it with regards to the Sakumono question. Yes, more education. Yes, we started our sensitization somewhere last year to sensitize people on the use of LPG in general to prepare their minds for CRM. We had a campaign, War Gas, which was led by Delay, and we went around the entire country to sensitize people on the use of LPG. We are going to dovetail the message of CRM into that agenda. So from last week, we started rolling out on our social media platforms messages that are targeted at CRM. So we educate people more on the CRM and how we intend for it to roll out. And so from this week or next week onwards, you begin to see more media advertisements and then programs on TV that talks about the CRM to educate people. Right. So we'll do that.
Right. Let me put the last round of questions. Unfortunately, our time is almost up. But Nana Okuamwa Boateng Ablikuma Central, aka Dr. Bawumia, is coming and says, "Good evening, Akwasi. The cylinder recirculation model is a very good initiative. Having listened to the gentleman in your studio, I can clearly see the deep thoughts that went into it. However, I want to ask, who is footing the cylinder? The buy or the Ghana Cylinder Manufacturing Company?" Nana Okuamwa Boateng Ablikuma Central sent in that one. And please, can I go and buy a cylinder at a circulation point if currently I don't have a cylinder? He's explained that already. Sami Ajay sent in that one. You would have to pay a token. He spoke to that already. Nene 1 is my name. Will the cylinder be weighed for the consumer before carrying it away? How are we consumers to know the kg we are buying since this has already been filled? With the existing, the cylinder is placed on a scale during the filling or the filling you want to write. Yeah. Martin Luther Laboni says, please, with the new policy, will the consumer be made to pay the cylinder and the gas? Are you sure the CRM has the capacity to meet the market demands without creating shortages and ultimately fuel price increasing? He's answered most of this. So I think there is just about one or two you haven't spoken to. Let's do it and then.
Okay, I think the first one was who was footing the bill of the cylinder.
Yes.
So it is part of the investment cost of the bottling plant. In this country, for most petroleum service providers, their investment cost is captured in the price build-up. And so there is a margin for their operation that caters for the cost of their operation. And for the bottling plant, the cost of the cylinder is captured in there, as well as the maintenance cost, which I spoke about. So the bottling plant will foot the bill for the cylinders. However, we have introduced a policy through which we seek to produce all of our steel cylinders. For the steel cylinders, we have capacity to produce them here in the country. We have about 3 cylinder manufacturing companies that are already in operation. And we want to implement that policy to ensure that all the steel cylinders we use under the CRM are produced locally here in Ghana. Then again, that is a creation of jobs and ensuring local content. And so, yes, I think that answers the footing of the cylinder. Will the cylinder be weighed? Yes, Nene, that was a very important question. So currently, when you go to the LPG refilling station, or even at your white fuel, petrol or diesel station, you see GSA certifies. They are in charge of metrology. So they certify these stations with regards to the scales and the meters that they use. At the automated bottling plant, you basically have about 12 or 18 or 24 nozzles of filling elements, which are filling the cylinders at the same time. Each of these nozzles has a meter by it. And the GSA has been in collaboration with us on this from day one. They have inspected some of the bottling plants already. And so they are going to ensure that the meters on the carousel are calibrated, that they dispense the exact amount into the cylinders.
Okay.
As part of the process of the line, the cylinders, after they are being filled, goes through a line. They are checked, the way it is checked at the bottling plant, where you could have inconsistency. We could have, less gas being in there, they top up. And where you have a bit of more, they check as well before they decant some of it off. And even check for leaks before they place a safety seal on the cylinder before it comes to the market. However, for you as the consumer, when you go to the cylinder exchange point to go and pay for the cylinder and pick it up, it is your right to request for a scale for it to be weighed, for you to make sure that you are getting the value for money.
All right.
And so with these measures, and the NPA will also continue to do spot checks. We go from station to station from time to time and then pick cylinders, weigh and check and make sure that consumers are not being shortchanged. And so with that, we believe we'll be able to ensure that consumers are not being shortchanged under the CRM.
Right. So, Obed,
Yes, sir.
Crane Wachi is the head of gas in charge of commercial regulation at the National Petroleum Authority. Thank you very much for doing us the honors tonight. There are too many questions still coming up. I'm sure in the course of time, we'll get you again back here in the studio. Someone is asking whether it's government funded or private funded. But when we get him again, we'll bring him back. Thank you very much, Obed.
Thank you, Kwesi.
My name is Kwesi Free, and our topic tonight has been on the cylinder recirculation model from the National Petroleum Authority to make sure that there is security, there is safety. Somebody actually had asked about whether when your cylinder is stolen, I'm sure you would have to go back and pay the ticket. But you get all the information on the NPA's website. My name is Kwesi Free. Thank you very much for doing the watching tonight.